Thank you all so much for joining us today. I was just going to say a few remarks, which I did write down because it's been a long few days, a long, wonderful few days. So first, let me introduce myself. My name is Sarah Kelly. I'm Communications Director with the Center for Interfaith Relations. So over the course of the past 4 days, we have explored love and what a powerful force it can be in the world. We've learned how love can transform our lives when we learn to accept our true selves without judgment. We've learned that love has the potential to diminish fear, to distrust, and discord when we make a conscious decision to go beyond loving our neighbor and also begin loving the stranger. We've learned that love isn't always the easy choice. It often takes courage and vulnerability, grace and forgiveness. But while love can at times be uncomfortable, an indisputable truth that our speakers have arrived at again and again over these last few days is that love is always the right choice. Today, we've gathered to talk a little bit more about love, specifically how to make our city a more loving place for all people. Now, you might notice there's some younger than average attendees here today, and thank you all so much for getting up early on a Saturday, but this conversation really would not be complete without having some young voices in the room. So thank you all so much. I'm looking at you. So one more point before I introduce our panelists. I wanted to just say that although we're going to be talking about Louisville, what we arrive at and what we talk about today in the room really applies to any community in which we live. So regardless of where you're from, I hope you will please participate. And this is going to be a participatory event, a little bit different than our other sessions, which is why we're in this more intimate setting. So please, when we ask questions, feel welcome to join us in this journey today. All right, so we're going to go on down the line. I've introduced myself. This is Elliot Kelly. He is a local youth mentor, a wrestling coach at Central High School, and he also works with the Fund for the Arts. Thank you so much for coming. And then we have Keyshawn Johnson, who is a Central High School student. What grade are you?
11th.
11th grade.
Yes,
thanks again for coming. Stephen George is a longtime local journalist who went away to D.C. for a while, came back, and now he's president of Louisville Public Media. And then we have Chastity Dotson, who is a writer and actress and also the founder of 300 for 300. And that is a local organization that is empowering young black girls and making the community better. Josh Moss, who is the editor of Louisville Magazine, and he is going to be guiding us, and he's going to explain the framework of this conversation. He has led this conversation in this format numerous times, so he's a real pro. So I will now pass the mics to Josh.
So thank you all on a Saturday morning. We didn't know how many to expect. This is awesome. Last year we did this, and it was in the big theater, and we were on stage. It was fantastic, but we couldn't see anybody. And so we asked if we could explore the mechs in this theater, and we came here, and this is awesome. We wanted to see faces. It's a discussion about love, and I think it's about connection. So to see each other, I think, is really important. One thing we talked about at the beginning in the sort of green room, as capital J journalists in school, the word love never used, not to approach your job with that. So I like that we can sit up here as journalists, as media, and say it's okay to love this city. I think with that can come the flip side, sort of tough love, and trying to push this place that we love to do a little bit better every day. So the sort of run of show, we want it to be participatory, so please feel free, just raise your hand when you have something to contribute. We'll be sure to get to you. If you're able to stand, please do so. Say your name. If not, totally okay. But we want you to be able to contribute too. We'll start with 3 multiple choice questions. So we'll have everybody, you think, stand for a yes?
I think stand. And let me just,
go ahead.
before we get into it, you will see me taking notes furiously throughout this, because at the end, one of the things that makes these kinds of conversations really powerful is to sort of read back and hear back what we've all said and what conclusions, if any, we've come to. So that'll be a large part of my job today, is listening, sort of formulating, and then delivering back to this group at the end what we've said.
So we have a clock, so I can see this clock. So we have an hour. We'll stick to that time. We found that if you go a little bit longer than that, it can sort of lose its power, I think. So we're going to keep it within that time limit. When we have about 10 minutes left, I'll give a warning, because I've been to events like this, and we run out of time, and I'm in my car on the way home, and I say, why didn't I? So if you're that kind of person, we'll give you a sort of heads up at the end. Before we get to these 3 questions where we'll start participating, I wanted to share a quote that Elliot said. So last year we did this event, and we had so much fun. We did another one at Louisville Public Media. And this event was around gun violence. It was related to the shooting at the bank, and it was the week bookended by another mass shooting at Chickasaw Park. So we were there to talk about that, and Elliot said something, and it's why we're here today. Elliot said, I had people who invested in me at a young age because they believed in me, not because I had some special talent or skill, not because I had some special aptitude, but because they just genuinely loved me and believed in me. But that is an insane amount of privilege coming where I'm from. And how insane is it that love can be a privilege? How insane is it that as a black person growing up in West Louisville, love from adults is a privilege? So before we get to the questions, Elliot, I just want to ask you, we were there to talk about the shootings and gun violence in our city at a time of hurt. And what made you go there and share that sentiment that has stuck with us since May?
First of all, I appreciate you all for making space for this conversation too, and that conversation as well. Just holding these spaces, they're valuable, and including, making sure intentionally including young voices and wanting that to be a piece. But the reason I thought about that was a lot of personal experience and being personally affected by one of those shootings, the one in Chickasaw Park. Right, lost somebody I cared about. One of my best friends lost his little brother that day. So, and then just thinking about the young people I've interacted with as a mentor, just as somebody, I don't even want to say a mentor because that elevates my role, as just a servant of the community. The amount of people I come across, often what I see is that the people that make it the furthest are the people that are given opportunities. And it really, it kind of comes, your outcomes are a direct correlation to your opportunities and exposure, right? And I think I was exposed to a lot. That's why I'm able to do a lot of things I do, because I can walk into a space. It's not my first time being in a space like this, right? This is, at this point, kind of routine for me, because I've been intentionally placed in these spaces since I was 12 years old by people who believed in me. But a lot of people don't get these opportunities because you have to be have a certain level of poise and charm and all of these different things. But I had those things, but I don't think that's what made me worthy to be in the spaces. I'm going to use Keyshawn for example. Keyshawn's amazing, right? But the most important thing about Keyshawn, if you take away all the great things that he does in the classroom, as a friend, as an athlete, as an activist, or if you take away all of these things, right? Keyshawn is he's a young man with a brilliant mind and a great heart. He cares about the people around him. Always, bro, always. And I think the reason, with that quote in particular, I think we talk about violence in our communities. There was a study done that talked about where essentially it talked about the violence rates over the past few years, and it talked about where the ARP funds, the American Rescue Plan funds went. That went towards public health. Over 50% of that went towards law enforcement. About 30-something% went towards violence prevention and intervention. Only 13% went towards youth development. So when you talk about violence and the people that are affected by the violence most are often 14 and 17-year-old black boys, right? The most intimately affected by it directly. Why is that not the demographic that we're investing in the heaviest? We tend to talk about being tougher on our, I work with a lot of black boys, right? we tend to talk about being tough, being holding people accountable, so on and so forth. I don't think that black boys need toughness. I think that black people, people in general, I think that people don't need toughness. People need love. The world is already tough enough, right? The world is already tough enough. And I think the biggest thing that we need is love, and a big piece of that too is how do you love people through mistakes? Another big inspiration for me saying what I said that day was kind of a taboo topic in our community, but Quintez Brown. Quintez is a great friend of mine too. I still talk to his brother, still talk to his family. I'm still in community with a lot of the same people that genuinely love Quintez. And my love for Quintez does not take away from accountability for what happened, but it does need to be contextualized as what even led to this to happen in the first place. And I think that's a conversation that is not being had. And often that conversation is not had with people. And I think a big part of that is when somebody does something wrong, we cast them to the side. We judge people on what they do rather than who they are. Right? So how do you love people through mistakes? Love sounds cute in theory. Love sounds beautiful in theory. But what do you do when love is not the popular choice? And that's kind of what it's like.
Thank you for sharing. I'm going to do, so it's 3 multiple choice questions. If you're able to stand, please do. If not, just raise your hand for your answer. So our choices are this. Every single day, probably once a week, probably once a month, every couple months, maybe once a year, never. So the question is, and we can participate too up here. I feel a sense of connection to my community every single day. So stand and raise your hand if you feel that every single day. Wow. And please, you think remain standing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So stand, I feel a sense of connection to my community probably once a week. That's me. Probably once a month. It's pretty much everybody. I'll start running down. Every couple months, maybe once a year, never. Okay. Everybody sit. Typically when we ask that, it's not quite as many people who feel a sense of connection every single day. I think that's amazing. It's reflective. People at 9 a.m. on a Saturday getting up, we're leaning forward. But I definitely want to explore that. So if you stood up for any of those frequencies, we'll get into that. The next question. Same options to choose from. I feel alone. Stand if you feel alone, never. Never feel like you never feel alone. Maybe once a year you feel alone. Every couple months. Probably once a month. Probably once a week. And then every single day. I would have stood for probably once a week. Okay. You sit down. And then the last one is related to that first. So the first one is how do you feel a sense of connection? I wish I felt a sense of connection to my community every single day. I wish I felt a sense of connection. I wish I felt maybe once a year. Every couple months, probably once a month.
Now we're moving.
Every couple months, maybe once a year, never. Okay, we can say. The thing that's interesting to me when we've done this is, like I said, more people in this room stood up around feeling a sense of connection every single day. I think, did you stand up for every single day? But feeling alone, I feel like there's space there to explore like a deeper sense of connection. I wonder what made you stand up for feeling that sense of connection every single day. And if anybody in the crowd, raise your hand. Yeah, we'll get to. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
It was a confusing question.
Apologies.
Yeah, no, just because if you're feeling connected, you don't need to wish. So I wasn't sure when to stand up.
Yes, the last question was have you
and then even, do you feel alone? You know, I wasn't sure if that meant being alone, because I love being alone, but I feel connected.
Yes.
So,
yes, and alone as opposed to lonely.
Loneliness, yes. Loneliness, yes.
Yes.
What made you say yes, you feel connected every day?
Well, you know, I started this charity called 300 for 300 3 years ago, and we've seen about 70 middle school girls of color, all who have my cell phone number. So at any given day, they are texting me, they are calling me, they are at my house, their mothers are texting me, their mothers are calling me, I'm texting them. So I have this, and I have family, but I have this tremendous community that has been built with these young women. So it's inevitable that somebody needs me or that we need each other. So I just feel a tremendous sense of community because there is a tremendous community.
How about you, Keyshawn?
I didn't stand for every day. I stood for, was it like most days, things like that. If you don't know, I led many of the protests for Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, David McAtee, and all of those that died due to police brutality. I was part of a team that passed the Crown Act to stop race-based hair discrimination. I have performed at Harvard University to do for music. So like, I feel like I have had a big impact and set my footprint for my community, but what can I do more? So I would never feel connected every single day because I haven't done enough. Like I would never be satisfied with what I have done. It's always more I can do.
I just want to ask the question, when we speak of community, are we talking about two-legged ones? Or do we include pets, or walking in the woods, or down by your river? I mean, the sense of nature communicating and part of our community.
Yes.
I'm not sure how many would include that, or how you might ask that question. Make sure that the sense of community is beyond just the two-legged ones.
Yeah. Yeah, here in the back row. We'll go here first.
Yeah, I was going to caveat my standing up for feeling connection with, I moved to a new city. I'm from California. But even before then, my communities weren't local. I mean, the people that live next door to me. But I also spent a lot of time coming in and out of incarceration. But I have created those connections, I think, and it's not local. So I was wondering if that's what we were talking about as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, we build a community in northern Appalachia, and so we always have the four-legged creatures because we have a farm, but we also have all the children from the community, the young, the 20-somethings, and we bring people in from all over. And that means we always have community. But sometimes I think you can have too much community. There is a space for alone time, which we don't have, which is why I could stand up immediately for that question.
What do you mean by that, too much community?
Well, when you have something like what we've built, you always have several layers of young people and 20-somethings and toddlers. It's always there. Sometimes I think it's too much, which why people leave the farm, because it can be too much because it's every single day. Everyone needs time to walk in the woods and be with God and be alone.
Yeah.
Morning. So I'm Alex Senegal from the Grand Prison Project, and I hear what Keyshawn said. I appreciate all the work you're doing in the community. I'm involved every day because there's such a need out there. I wear many hats, being a minister, working with Indian Grand Prison Project, and also involved with homeless population with the Destination Homes in Silicon Valley and in California. The need is so huge that it takes every day for me. It takes every day to make an impact. And every day there is a great big need. So that's one of the reasons why it is an everyday process for me.
What are the specifics of that need?
It depends on the population. So if I'm working with the prison population, individuals just coming back into the community, the integration back into the community, they need support. So many things they don't know how to get, so many resources they need. If we're dealing with the homeless population, definitely all kind of needs go on there. And then, of course, being in ministry, any type of need, whether it's emotional, physical, spiritual, or just resources. The need is huge. The need is horrendous. And then we also have just the, mass incarceration going on. So a lot of people on drugs want to get off drugs. can name it, it's just a huge need.
So I wonder, we're talking about community as meeting needs and connection as, you know, how you said 70 young women have my cell phone number and everybody texts me all the time. I'm curious how that you all feel you're sort of trying to meet the need that everybody is talking about, and then maybe that sparks ideas around the room for things that we can leave here and do or start doing that we're not. So what do you know, how do you view kind of meeting the needs of your peers, and really what do you do?
Broadly living by example, becoming what I want to see more young. Really, I got to speak from a young black man's perspective because I don't have anyone else's perspective. So becoming what I want a young black man's, what that point of view should be on us. Like, we're not all trying to be tough, selling drugs, and that's the persona that they get on us young black men. We fight for justice. We want better. We want to own our own businesses. We want to be lawyers. We want to be doctors. We want to be, there's a lot of talent within us black young men. Like, we don't all do music, but the ones that do music, we're great at it. There's a lot of things that we're great at, and like we get frowned upon just because of the color of our skin, and I feel like it's not fair. Like, we're all, just because you've seen one person do one thing, that don't mean we all do it. If I see a Caucasian man rob a bank, I don't mean, oh my God, this Caucasian man's gonna go rob this bank. We're all not just the same person, but we all do have something that sparked that in us. And I feel like we need to have an understanding. Instead of frowning upon a community of people, we need to have an understanding of why they're doing it. Why are they going about it this way? Why do they feel they need to do this? How can I help them to prevent them from doing that?
Back there?
I appreciate you, Keyshawn, and I think your name is Elliot.
Right.
I think a lot of times, as a young black man, a fellow young black man in Louisville, we don't oftentimes see young black men or homeless people or incarcerated people as people who are in need of community. I think that we need to kind of open up space for who we think are deserving of community and who we want to welcome into our community and be more open like that. And I'm so happy that you mentioned Quintez Brown, a great young man who suffered from mental health issues. I don't know the whole situation that led up to it, but I'm so glad you said that, because a lot of times as young black men, you have one opportunity before your life can be over in a second. And I just think we need to focus on care. We need to focus on forgiveness, because nobody is their mistakes. Nobody is their best days always either. So I appreciate you guys.
Definitely.
Thank you.
And can I touch on that really quick? That's something I want to say too. Thank you for lifting both of those points too. The first one, we talked about seeing people in need of community. When we say the term homeless people, incarcerated people, the first word is the one that we focus on the most: homeless, incarcerated. We take away the fact that they are people, right? Language matters. So, language matters a lot, right? So I think even trying to shift language. So something that Quintez actually taught me. They're not homeless people. They're not incarcerated people. They are people who are incarcerated. People who are experiencing homelessness, right? So it shifts the way that we view it. And then we talked about mental health. One thing I talk to his brother Jacoby a lot. So whenever I see his brother's a student at Simmons. It's an HBCU here in Louisville, Historically Black College University here in Louisville. One thing, when I talk to Jacoby, man, how says, man, he's good. He's getting big. He's feeling good. The subtext of that is he's taking care of himself. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things, because when you take, I kind of had similar experiences, but my mother, who's actually in the audience right here, something that she always tells me to this day, man, you gotta learn how to say no. You gotta learn how to say no, because if you don't, you will run yourself into the ground. And it's happened multiple times for me. I try to listen, I try to, but I always find myself a little bit overwhelmed. And I'm glad that I have somebody in my corner to tell me, man, slow down, say no. You have the power to say no. She taught me that at a young age. Gave me that power. Hey, Ellie, these people want you to speak here and do this. Do you want to? Right? She gave me that autonomy at a young age. And I think a lot of times, a lot of young people that are deemed great or high achieving don't get that opportunity. They're told, you need to do more, you need to do more, you need to do more, rather than just being allowed to be a young person who makes mistakes, who is human, who has a cap to their capacity, right? And I think Quintez suffered a lot from that. He battled a lot with trying to be Tez and trying to be Quintez Brown, the writer for the Courier Journal, the activist for Black Lives Matter Louisville, the person who run the resume, right? The resume and the man are two different people. A lot of times. They're the same person, but they're perceived to be two different people. I think that's a battle that Quintez dealt with a lot, which led to a lot of those mental health things. So it's a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot of nuance. We take away who the person was and only identify them by what they do. That's one of the most dangerous things we can do. So when you talk about rooting actions in love, you have to deal with the person as they exist, as they are, on their because even on your best days, you're not perfect. So stop seeing people from the lens of perfection. And I think that at a basic level allows us to see people as being in need of community, see people as in need of resources, as human beings who are capable of greatness but may need support. And it's that simple. So thank you for lifting both of those points too.
And if I could say one more thing.
For sure.
My bad.
No, you're good. For sure.
But I think we need to be more open to, me and Quintez connected because we have similar politics about Pan-Africanism and, loving African peoples wherever we are and just uplifting us. We have to be more open with young black men who don't have necessarily mainstream politics. I think those kind of things scare the community away, and people, they have images of the Black Panther Party and these kind of things scare people, but these are the things that we tap into to really connect with our community and build that up. So I want us to be a little less judgmental about people's radical politics, because I know that was an issue for Quintez, and it's also an issue for me and how I'm perceiving something. So
Quintez was getting death threats as a teenager. Yeah, right. He was getting death threats for politics.
Yeah.
Right. Most loving person I know. Imagine what that leads to.
We'll get to you in a second, Chastity. You were going to say something.
Yeah, when you just talk about building community and aspects of the community that are important. When I first came and I was working with these middle school girls, I just came to focus on joy. And I said, I want to create a community where we center joy, where we allow them to just be kids. When I came, there was a lot like, why don't you take these girls and why don't you get them out there and do this? I'm like, why don't I just take these girls and just let them be girls? Like, why don't I let them go and draw something? Why don't I let them make a bracelet? Why don't I let them just feel what it feels like to be sisters and to be safe and to not have to be a black girl or a LGBT, just a girl who just is sitting there. And so a couple things that came up were mental health. And, you give someone an opening to feel joy and to feel empowered. But if you don't acknowledge the trauma underneath or how that might impact her ability to dream in the long run, then you're really setting her up for failure. I can give you a laptop and say, write your story. I can give you some beads and say, make a bracelet. But if I don't allow you to exercise those things that might trip you up when you're 14 or 15, then ultimately I'm not doing my job as a community leader. So I think that centering not only joy in those communities, but centering healing in the community and putting it actually as the forefront. We have this program now called Thrive, which is therapists helping reverse impact of violence and emotional trauma. And the purpose of Thrive is so that as we tell these girls to dream their biggest dreams, as we tell these girls that you can do anything, as we invite these girls to create immersive films or to create amazing galleries or artworks, we also say somewhere underneath there's a part of you that was never told it was okay to feel that thing. All of us go through life and we're hurting, and we never, at the highest level, think that it's okay to hurt. We never are able to embrace our anguish and say that our tears water the flowers. Our tears water our garden and are as much an integral part of our garden as the sunshine and all of the rest of it. So I think within community, centering joy for us and focusing also on how we heal these girls with compassion is something that I think has been really, really important for us.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
You got a hand up back here. Yes, go ahead.
I'm Carol Johnson. I think I'm hearing two things that are over and over again that are really important for all of us. And one is what you just said, and you've been saying, Elliot, which is how important it is to acknowledge the whole person, including the trauma that's there, it's always there, and also the gifts, and help people find a balance. And the other thing is that Keyshawn, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Keyshawn, I think, also gave us a really crucial clue about how groups approach each other, because a lot of what gets done to people is looking only at the problems. And you see the problem, you see the trouble, you see the issues, and you're trying to fix it or help it. And as you said, everybody's gifted. Everybody is gifted. And there are also these wonderful gifts that the whole community is missing out on, because people are looked at only in terms of some kind of deficit or prejudice or whatever the issue is. So beginning with the premise, everybody's gifted. Yes, everybody is also screwed up. Everybody, no exception. I'm a Calvinist, no exceptions. But everybody is also gifted. And if we start looking at the gifts and perceiving them and encouraging them, and I think actually human beings have an inherent ability to do this, then, we all remember, most of us remember the teacher who saw something in us and encouraged it, and how crucial that was in our lives. That's a very common experience. I think Keyshawn is giving us a key to a way to change the way a lot of how we approach all of these issues, and it's not that we don't acknowledge that there is trauma, there is problematics that need, but you don't start there with people. That's just what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Yeah, to your point about alternative politics, the Metropolitan Opera in New York City is presenting an opera called Malcolm X. So I just want to throw that up. But I have a question for Elia and Keyshawn. What gives you, as young people, to be able to stand up and be out there, to be out there? What's, you mentioned your mom, bless your mom. Who else is there supporting you and giving you sort of positive strokes? Because it's got to be really difficult these days to be in high school, number one, and then to be black in high school. I'm going to say in this town, I'm not from here, in this town. And so, do you know what I mean? Who's behind you? Who's on your shoulders? Who's holding your hand?
Most importantly, I got a great support system within my family. But I've been doing public speaking. The first career that I wanted to take on was being a pastor, and this is around 6 or 7 years old. So praying, being 6 years old, I'm praying over a group of 1,200 people at a Christmas drive. And then people keep telling me, "Oh, you can do this." I always tell my community. It seems like I always tell my community behind me. Although there's no matter what you do, there's gonna be people that doubt you. Take that as passion and put that doubt into passion. Go full force with what you want to do. And you spoke on it being difficult of being a black young man in high school here in Louisville. Although the statistics, the mental health part of it, yes, it may be difficult. I have to keep up this image because I have done so much. I have to keep my schoolwork up because my grades have been so good in the past, and when they get to slipping, I'm like, dang, I can't let this happen. I got a family, I'm trying to make it for, you feel me? So, although it's difficult, it's also easy because I know where I want to be in life. I know, the dreams that I want to achieve, there's goals I have no other option but to make those happen. And so, that's my passion. Where do you want to be in life? there's no way I can just say I want to do it. You got to be a go-getter. You got to go get that. I can't just sit on my butt and be like, yeah, I want this big old house. I want to retire my mama by the age I turned 25. That ain't going to happen with me just sitting right here just saying it. I got to go get it. There's no other way. You got to be a go-getter. It's not difficult. It's really easy when you put your passion into it.
That's right.
Thank you.
Elliot, we've talked about this. Who are those people for you? And then Chastity, if you have an answer to that as well. Who are those people for you?
Easily my mother. Easily. Person number 1, 2, and 3. My siblings, because all my siblings also have extremely high aspirations. So we push each other. Right? When one of us does something, it's not a competition. It's a collaboration. It's an empowerment. Right? So my sister got me my first internship in college, actually. So, different things of that nature. And that was a big thing for me. So my family, my support system, I have great friends. So the same friends I had at the age of 13 and 14, a couple of my mama actually didn't like growing up. But those are the same people I went to college with, the same people I was in business classes with, the same people who are working in the city right now, working diligently, doing service, being active citizens in the community, right? So I've always had a great intimate community. And then also just the young people I work with, like Keyshawn. Like, I remember it was a few months ago, Keyshawn sent me a random text. Like, I just want to let you know how much I love you and I appreciate you. Right? Things like that mean the world to me because when so it means the world to me because I know that everybody doesn't have that. So Keyshawn talks about his community. I'm pretty sure, I know the answer to this question, but I just want him to say it. You probably got friends. Do you have friends who, for all the friends you have, do all of them have the amount of community that you have?
No.
So that's why I do it, because not everybody has that. I was the same way. A lot of my friends didn't have that. So the thing that keeps me going, the things that I've been called a lot of things. I've been told I'm a lot of things that I'm not. But the reason I'm able to tune those things out and keep going is because I know that people like Keyshawn who actually know me and see me are able to actually appreciate that, and that's who matters. It's not the people from the outside. It's the people who I engage with that matter the most to me, and those people remind me like, hey man, I love you and I appreciate you.
In one of our meetings, you mentioned your family. You also mentioned how there were other people in your community, in your life, teachers, coaches. You said they would not let me fail.
Yeah.
And I asked you something. I said, you mentioned these mentors in your life, and I said, do you think all of them knew they were that for you?
Not at all.
You said what?
Not at all. And the reason why is because a lot of people that I would consider a mentor don't do it for that. There were people that did, try to specifically be that role for me, but it was forced and it didn't seem organic, right? Perfect. I'm gonna use me and Keyshawn for example. I don't even consider Keyshawn a mentee. He's a little brother to me. He has a teacher that came to me and said, hey, Keyshawn told me that he knows you, keep him under your wing. I said, respectfully, Keyshawn is not under my wing. He's flying with me. A year later, the same teacher came to me and said, hey, I want you to talk to Keyshawn. I'm worried about him. He's struggling a little bit, so on and so forth. His grades are great, but he's struggling with A, B, and C. And I said, I want you to understand these are the things that he's dealing with. There's nothing I can say that will make what he's dealing with any easier. Be graceful. Yeah. And hopefully I don't know if that person is more graceful with you. You probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah, but Keyshawn probably didn't know we had that conversation. But I think those are the mentors that I had, not people that said, I do it for this or I do it to get accolades. I had people that, to this day, people that try to use me, the things I do in my name, and use their status as a mentor for me to be a benefit. But majority of the people that I really consider the mentors, majority of the people that really poured into me and I would consider, hey, I love you, like my coaches and the people I still talk to this day, they didn't have to say it. They knew it. They didn't have to let me know they didn't have to vocalize everything that they did. They just did it.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's the beauty of it is it's organic. And it's not always the same people. I don't think I've had any one mentor my whole life. I think I have a revolving door of people, but I've always had somebody. Right? So I think that's one of the most beautiful things, too, is that a mentor doesn't have to be with you lifelong. It can be just for a season. Life happens in seasons. We have 4 when it comes to our annual calendar. We have 4 seasons. Life happens in seasons as well. And I think sometimes relationships are seasonal, and it's not about the relationship ending that it's a bad thing. It's about the fact that it happened, the fact that it empowered you, the fact that it meant something to you. That alone can be empowering. So I had a lot of those type of encounters and mentors.
Who were those people for you?
My parents. My dad is a pastor of a church in Gary, Indiana. And when I was growing up, there was this shelter in the same parking lot as the church. And my caretaker, Amos, he cooked in that shelter. So every day after school, we would go and we would be in the shelter cooking with Amos and taking the people who came in, asking questions like we worked there. And my mother would always take in families to our house. So I don't know, my sisters didn't feel the same, but like whenever we would get new people, I'd be like, they were my sisters. I would always be like, I have some more sisters, or I have some more whatever. And so that was kind of the early start. And I really honestly just feel like everybody is my family. That's just how I feel. Like I feel like we're all connected. And I feel like if I'm winning, we're all winning. Or if I'm loving, I want to love everybody. And God, you know, I'm a praying woman. And I rely very much on God's direction for my life. So I don't really do much outside of my faith. I don't really do much outside of what feels appropriate within my relationship, my spiritual life. So that was a legacy that was passed on to me again by my parents, and that is how I operate at all times.
Quick follow-up, Keyshawn. You mentioned at age 6 or 7, the first job you wanted to do was like a pastor. I wonder why at that age?
Really?
And then a follow-up, is that still something that you want to do?
Okay, so I'm going to do the follow-up question first. Okay, so it's not so much I still preach, but I still get the word across. Like I still make sure with any bond that I create that God is the base of it. He's the founder of it. He is our roots. So it don't matter. Like if I can't pray with you, I want to be able to pray with the person that I'm talking to. I want to be able to bring God into a conversation at any time. If you're going through a problem, let's talk about God. God's the person that could heal it. And then I don't want to be so much of a pastor, but I do want to be able to get the word across. Like you don't have to wear a suit and tie every day to get a word across of God. You don't gotta have a church of people in front of you just to have a one-on-one conversation. You have that one-on-one conversation with someone, and it's a domino effect. They could go to someone else, and then that person could go to someone else. It's just like my favorite verse, Romans 8:18. The pain that you are feeling now do not amount to the pain to the joy that's coming in the future. So just me telling someone that now, no telling who could go from this room right now, and someone come to them with a problem, and they tell them that verse. We don't know what can happen, and it's just like no matter what you do or what you say to someone, it can have a hard impact. So me just hearing that just now, it could have an impact on someone that we didn't know that had an impact on.
I wanted to share a quote that we ran in Louisville Magazine last year. This is from, I invited this person, I've not met him in person, so if you're here and you want to raise your hand, that'd be awesome. The Reverend Steve Ensley of Redeemer Lutheran Church at 37th and River Park Drive, that's in Shawnee. He said, this is the Festival of Faith, so this is really resonating with me. He said, we used to fill this place up. It'd be full, like a community session in here. Kind of like how years ago, churches used to be the hub of social activity. But so much has changed in the last 2 years, and it's hard to get traction again. The church has to figure out a new model of how to relate to people. This is something that has come up a lot, this idea. And I wonder in what ways, both here sitting up front and in the room, in what ways are you still finding connection to Louisville or whichever city you call home? Which spaces, if any, are filling that void? And I wonder if there aren't, what sort of do we wish our city had so we could have that sense of connection? And one other thing, like a lot of people also mentioned the loss of community centers in Louisville, and specifically the populations that those places helped. You're raising your hand, Keyshawn.
Well, my church, I go to Base Memorial right now. Well, I'm a member at Base Memorial, and what we did during like these past 2 years is we got the youth involved heavy. Like we're the future, so we got to do something now, and that's something I say in a lot of interviews. Is we're the future, so we have anything that if y'all want. I feel like the people that we have in office right now, the people that are in control or have that power, so-called, I feel like we need to uplift the voices of the youth, because whatever changes get made now, they're going to impact us the hardest. We're the ones that got to grow up with that. We're the ones that got to come into our adulthood with those laws just now coming into force. So I feel like we need to uplift youth voices like way more than what we do. We need to have some type of amplification on us youth, because it's not fair that just because someone's going through a problem, there's problems that we go through, and those problems don't get amplified. So if we was to try to host a room just like this with youth voices and allow us to speak, get our point across, and just be open ears. And I feel like that's a big problem in our community. We always tell people to be tough, hold it in. It's not worth it, leave it alone. And that just I get our blood boiling. Like, we gotta hold so much in. So when that one thing comes to us, we just explode. So we need open ears. We need understanding. We need what this conversation is about. We need love, like real, genuine love.
Yes, please.
One of our girls, we did this thing asking our girls what love is, and Mylan, one of our girls, has said it over and over and over again. Love is a sacrifice. And I think to your point of, I think prejudging young, I call our girls colorful girls, because there's so many beautiful shades. But prejudging them, I would say if you want to learn how to love outside of what your circle, is to sacrifice your idea of who these people are and how you should love them. Start with forgiveness and grace. I came into this really just thinking it was going to be this quick, short thing, and it's taken on a life of its own. And what I've had to learn throughout this whole process is how you don't just throw people away, and you don't just write them off. When you see somebody and they are angry, meaning they are in anguish, on the other side of that anguish is pain, and right past that pain is your opportunity to love them. We have a girl, the same girl, and I've known her now for like years, so I know that when she gets feisty and when she starts, I'm like, I know that's when she's ready for me to love her. And it just happened the other day that it was the month that her father passed away, and so we're always together because we have a space right downtown. So they're always there and they're always hanging. And we were there, and she was just kind of quiet on her phone by herself, just kind of like huddled up. And I came over to her, and I was like, "Hey, you wanna do this?" She's like, "No, I'm good. I'm like, "Well, why don't you just put your phone away and be with me for a second?" And then she kind of did her thing. She's like, "I don't," she kind of got a look like this, and then really with the shoulders. And I was like, but I'd seen it before. So I knew it was a reaction. Now, if I'd never seen it before, and I've seen people write her off just off of that one action, and I looked at her, and I said, "Give me your phone." I said, "Come here." And I hugged her. And it was not something that I planned on doing. It wasn't even something, it was a totally different reaction from how I probably reacted the very first time I saw that. But it was a new thing because I know her now, and when I held her, she burst into tears. And then she was hyperventilating, and she could not breathe. And this is what is on the other side of that thing that you use to label these kids because of, inner city, black kids, all these things that you want to put on that. And what that is good old-fashioned pain and good old-fashioned loss. That is actually something that connects us all. All of us get to that point where all we really need is for somebody just to stop, breathe with us, and love us. And so I think what I can say now, in love being a sacrifice, is the next time you see someone that you want to label either homeless or gay or black or white or whatever it is that you then attach an identity to, sacrifice that idea that you have of that person and just be with them. If you see somebody in public and they look like they might have what you want to call an attitude, know that just beyond that anguish, there is a person there who needs to be loved and who needs your absolute compassion, devotion, and attention. So sacrifice your need to judge and to react. And just begin to love each other because we really are all one. And we really are all going through the exact same thing underneath. Yes.
I'd like to pose this question. Okay, yes, please go ahead.
Well, I almost don't know what to say in response to that, because that is a mic drop.
Yes.
Such a beautiful note for all of us to end on. And I didn't know what you meant, or I had my own ideas, but I love the concept that you just left us with. Is it chastity?
Yes.
My God. I was going to just comment that I feel like what you've invited us all into is to come into contact with our own sense of belonging. And what I know is that we can't belong anywhere unless we belong to ourselves, which is what you are doing with 300 for 300s, and what Sean and what Elliot, what all of us are talking about. And not everybody got a mom like you did, but I would love to meet you. And when we don't have that, it's not our fault. And it doesn't mean that there isn't a mom or a dad or a nurturer somewhere in the crowd for us. But I think this really interesting question you asked about the differentiation between loneliness and being alone, like you said, Charles, like that's really it, right? We're actually never alone when we have contact with ourselves, because when we're deeply in contact with ourselves, we're in contact with everyone and everything. That's actually so rare sometimes, even for people in here who are doing beautiful. I mean, I stood up for once a week or once a month feeling alone and also feeling lonely, and we go back and forth. So I think that it's important to honor like the both and, that we need each other's reflections. We need compassionate communities. We need our affinity groups within those communities, people that look and feel like us. And we need to get out of the duality, as you say, and to take up the instruction from yesterday and to love the stranger that is next to us and to sacrifice what we think. And I just thank you for the opportunity to do this on a Saturday morning with each other.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Christy. I'm just wondering, these are wonderful ideas, and they are, it seems to me, more specifically at the moment, one-on-one, which is really important, and where it all is, I understand that. But we have a community that is crying for serious help. And so what should, in your minds, our institutions, it makes specific recommendations about what these churches and houses of worship, or what our government or what our police should be doing, just ideas of that you're, from your practical knowing how to love one-on-one, what are some of the ideas that we can pass on to our institutions that's going to make our city a safe place?
Can I tackle that question?
I hope everybody will.
This is actually something I'm really passionate about. One, it takes a multidisciplinary approach. When you're sick, you go to a doctor, you allow them to comprehensively analyze you. Once the comprehensive analysis is done, they go over everything, then they direct you to a specialist. Right? But you have to get the comprehensive analysis first. So our approach needs to be collaborative. I think often what happens is we talk about what can I do in my individual organization rather than who can I be in community with. I think that's one of the first things. So me, I don't have my own mentoring organization yet. But the beauty of what I do, and the reason that so many people, I have so much intimate access to so many young people, is because I work with a plethora of organizations, not just because these are the ones that are the best, but because they're where I can be, the one I'm needed. There's young people there. There's a space to make an impact, and sometimes I bridge the gap between these different organizations and make sure that there's the active bridge. Sometimes young people don't know where to go. They only know one space. The one space doesn't resonate, and it's like, well, dang, I tried. But like, there needs to be so much going on and so much connection between what's going on that it's constantly being thrown at you. I think that's one of the biggest things we can do. I know specifically in the nonprofit space, so many nonprofits, because of funding, tend to operate in silos rather than collaboration. And I think that's the first thing you can do is when you're a servant, it's not about you or your work. It's about the work being done, whether you do it or not. So I think that's the first thing, is the first question to ask is, who can we collaborate with? And I think from there, all the answers can be answered. And I can't say what each person or entity needs to do, but the first thing I can say is that, man, we need everybody in the room, minimize your role and lift up what can our role be, right? How can not just what can I do more of, how can what I do supplement what you do? How can what this person does supplement what I do? That needs to be the conversation first and foremost, from my perspective and my observations and experiences.
Keep it short and simple. Really, just being intimate within those neighborhoods and those communities. It's like not having an outlook, but actually seeing what that problem is and attacking that problem. Like, we have to be intimate. There's no way to just like be broad about it. You have to be intimate within those communities.
I would say focusing on education and really focusing on education. I think a lot of money is poured into schools. I don't know where it goes. It's definitely not going into the classrooms. These girls are not, that I deal with, nobody's watching. Nobody's caring. They talk to me all the time about, the teachers are exhausted, they're overworked, they're probably underpaid, and they are not able to manage the amount of students that they have. And so what I can say is when they come into the room with me, there's only, usually 20 girls, and we spend a lot of time together, and I'm really watching. I remember we went to a camp this last cohort, and in the camp they were there for a week and nobody was watching. They had these levels, and the last level before you get kicked out is called the fire zone. If you get fire zoned, you are gone. And fire zone could be anything. It could be something very simple, but they don't have time to deal with it, so they just fire zone you and kick you out. But there's a lot of smoke before the fire zone, and nobody's looking for smoke signals. They're just looking for that thing where they go, you're the problem, you're out of here. And so for the most part, these young kids are spending most of their time at school. So if you're at school and nobody's checking for smoke, nobody's checking for trauma, nobody's checking for new habits that are going to ruin your future, then how are we supposed to say, oh, well, we're just going to put them here on the weekend? No, we have to really start to mindfully educate, not just the people who are being educated, but the educators, so that they're sensitive to what these young people are going through, and so they're mindfully helping them navigate the landscape instead of just saying, be quiet and sit down.
Yes.
That's it.
I'll just really quick. So we have about 10 minutes left. Is that right, Sarah, by your clock? Okay. So if, like me, you're going to be in your car on the way home, say, why didn't I say that? You're a jerk. One thing Christy mentioned was our police department. Something early on that Elliot mentioned was around funding and where money went. In our preparation for this event, we mentioned, and we invited, he couldn't be here, Councilman Ben Reno Weber, who's new to the Metro Council. And there was this news story I think you guys published at LPM about how it's a very small thing that he's doing. He's giving police officers Fitbits to encourage them to walk in our neighborhood, which is my neighborhood, which is the Highlands. And it got me thinking, I've lived here since 2007, and outside of like a big festival, I said, I don't think I've ever, one time, seen a police officer walking on the street. And I asked Elliot, who lives in Algonquin, and he said the same thing. And it's just such a small way to encourage human interaction. I'd like for you to talk on that specific moment like we talked about in the office, but I'd like to pose it to the room with 10 minutes left. I wonder, anybody doing work where you're encouraging these types of interaction in our city, big picture, or just sort of kind of dreaming a little dream? I mean, I know a lot of the Festival of Faith has been some looking at the past, some the present. If we look forward to the Louisville we want in the future, like Christy said, this community, specifically since March 2020, has been screaming for help. And so I'd love for us to sort of steer in that direction. Allison.
This will sound like an advertisement, and so that's the what do you call it, the disclaimer. But I am connected with a project that is trying to be forward-looking, that's specifically trying to deal with education, and the woman that's leading it is so modest that she won't talk about it probably, so I'm going to put her on the spot. She's right here. Her name is Alexis Harris. She's a professor at the University of Virginia's education school, moved to Louisville 10 years ago to see if what you were talking about could actually be taught in a classroom in a typical American public school setting. For those that don't live in Louisville, we have an unusually large district of 100,000 kids under one superintendent. So it's a big, very big district, actually, for the United States. And it turns out it's a typical district in the United States. In fact, if you wanted to find a more typical district in the United States, you'd be hard-pressed to find one. So that's actually interesting for Louisvillians to bear in mind. If you want to know about what's going on in America, and you want to know what's going on in the American public school setting, look no further than the Jefferson County Public School District, JCPS, because that is what's going on in America. All the good and all the challenges, and all the opportunities. And so I've come to see it that way just because this is now a 10-year project that has a curriculum that was written to meet the Common Core standards, that could be replicated in any school district in the United States, and that we would use Louisville as a district to check out whether this idea of teaching emotional, social well-being within the context of the broader social and emotional learning initiative that's going on all over America in every school district, but how could you take that dynamic and make it even better? Because most people have never heard of SEL. Doesn't mean anything typically outside of an academic context. But now Alexis should talk about, particularly, by the way, and the teachers, and the idea of looking at not just the whole child or the whole person, but the whole school. And this is, by the way, elementary school. So this is specific to kindergarten through 5th grade, elementary school. Take it away, Alexis.
Well, I was just going to add, to Chastity's point, if we want to bring these qualities of love and compassion and social and emotional wellness into a classroom, we have to start with the adults. And because we have to look at, what is getting in the way of that first. And then are there ways that the way that we're interacting are actually causing harm? And, how can we bring awareness to ourselves as adults and the ways that we're building relationships and building community to be able to do that in a way that will actually meet the needs of everyone in the room a little bit better. And I'll just say, just as a bigger point too, we want to, I think that when we're talking about how to make a more loving community, we want to think about what are the ways that we can make a positive impact. And we have this mindset of being generative and adding initiatives, adding programs, doing things that will build people up, and all that is great and important and wonderful, but we also have to do the flip side of that, the uncomfortable side of that, and look at what are the things that we're already doing in our institutions, our policies, our businesses, our nonprofits that are trying to do good. What are the things that might be doing harm? And we can't do that without having conversations with the people that are impacted by those.
We have a hand up here in the back.
Hello everyone, my name is I'm Fairgrass Thunder. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the policies that have been on the books in Louisville from the 1930s through the 1960s. Up until last March of 2022, it was illegal for a shotgun neighborhood to garden any plant higher than 10 inches tall. And that was on the books for 90 years, and people had their homes taken away from them for disobeying and growing food. And so we're talking about food deserts, and that has been a big thing about food access. But if you don't change the laws and you punish people for decades, it gets passed down in generations as things that can or can't be done. What we're trying to do now, especially in Smoketown, Shelby Park, Germantown, we're trying to, we illegally grow on the vacant lots that are owned by deceased people, because those are the only lots available that are able to be farmed. And so we have about 30 days before the city comes and mows all the food down, because they'd rather see it as a set resale value. They see it as, it can't be food, it has to be grass. And so changing some of those things, just even on the tops of parking garages downtown, which are never full, every rooftop garden every parking garage could be food, and every parking space could be a market stall, but it's mandatory cars right now. And they'll take, bikes, they'll take tents. There's so much vacant land in the city, especially under I-65, that the city pays tax money to fence off. And Frankfurt Avenue has water fountains and public water usage, but when we try to do the same things in Shelby Park and Smoketown, they say that it's illegal and they don't want to have people congregating by public water. And same with Shepherd Square. Shepherd Square was about to have a transit hub when it was first being redesigned. The city said no because they didn't wanted to discourage public congregation, but they want to encourage it in other places. So I just want to really bring in mind that a lot of these problems that we are talking about as a systemic issue, there is a law on the books, more than likely from the 1930s through the 1970s, that actively dissuades that. The piece that I'm working on right now with many different food advocacy groups is there's a law on the books from the 1950s that bans food in public parks citywide. It's illegal to forage, it's illegal to pick fruit off of trees, and you could get fined if you do that. So we're really trying to cast a wide net and change these laws because otherwise it's not going to get any better.
I think that is such an important point, and lifting those things up, its laws, its practices. A few years ago, some journalists in our newsroom decided to take inventory of public trash cans in the city and correlate that to complaints of code violations, right, for trash, nuisance, things like that. And it's probably will surprise no one in this room, much like what you just said, that the neighborhoods on the east side of this city, by and large, have far more public trash receptacles than the ones on the west and downtown. And we look at those neighborhoods as dirty. Well, there's a reason for that, right? I think we had one here.
To double back on what you made about SE and social emotional wellness, and I think it's Olivia. You made a very wonderful gesture. Someone who said they needed to hop at the right time, and complimenting. I remember it was Elliot, where you said a very kind text to your friend. Very, very welcome gestures. Something I wondering is I'm not really as much of a social person as some other people, but when you run into these difficult times and interactions where people suddenly might get triggered or things like that, I wonder if some of the journalists might be able to talk about some of the just the actual verbiage, ways that you can talk someone down, reach out, phrases that people can use in times where someone might get triggered or they didn't meet the right. What's the right wording? When people say they don't feel like they say nothing, but if they knew some of the right phrases to say and things like that, they might change the situation in a positive direction. But I'm not really a wordsmith. So I appreciate people who are more able to work through those types of things. But I don't know, that just might be kind of a practical way of moving challenges from being a tough, a harsh interaction to something that's more loving.
I saw two more hands. We got one here. We'll do here and here. Yeah, let's go here. We'll go there, and then here. Right.
I wanted to piggyback off the point that the gentleman across here pointed out with the laws on the books. We talk about these neighborhoods, but they're a direct result of the investment on the part of the city and the city government. Ghettos aren't, they don't just pop up, they're purposely created. And we funnel certain communities into these things. You gave a great example. It ties in back to what I said with who's allowed to have community. So in the East End, well, it depends on which East End you're talking about. In the far east side of the city, he talked about how congregating in parks was allowed and encouraged, while in inner city neighborhoods, it's discouraged and they don't want it. So I think it's super important that we understand that these things are created by the powers that be. They don't just pop up out of nowhere.
Let's go here, and then we'll go here.
I just in speaking to trauma and wellness and language, I'm a creative arts therapist, founding member of the National Organization of Arts and Health, and addressing all of these situations with music, art, dance, spoken word, all of the creative arts therapies and arts and healthcare has research that's really shown what this does in communities now. And so Now, in terms of the medical, there is social prescribing that's happening. And, so now music is prescribed by physicians and nurse practitioners, and art, and going to museums and so forth. And I'm sure, Chastity, you know about this. But it is a universal language and is definitely a way to get the word out, get people together. So for sure, let's work with the arts communities, for messaging and also coming together.
Can I just say really fast what she said, just to piggyback off of it, which is something I discovered like 3 months ago, and it was crazy. We had a new group come in, and we had gotten this really fancy lady to create this curriculum for youth, and she was an expert. And I came with this thing, and they were like, yeah, no, this is summer, and this is very boring, and we do not want to do this. We do practice radical honesty, and they were being radically honest. It's very stressful. So I was like, okay, so we just had to start to pivot and ideate in real time with their feedback. And what we found was that they really want to make everything art. And so our program, we work off of these affirmations. Every week we give a new way for them to focus their identity and ways of them to think about themselves in the world. And so instead of teaching this curriculum, I came up with creative tasks so that at the end of it, they would have an artifact. They would have something that they could share. They would have a work of art, or they would have a bracelet, or they would have a song, or they would have something. And I let them self-regulate. I didn't say you have to do it at this time. I just said, this is what you guys have to do. You have a big show coming up. I gave them an exhibit at the end. And you guys get to regulate how you want to do this and how you want to present yourselves to the world. I have never seen a room where all of the teenagers were not holding their phones. They don't even use their phones anymore, you guys. They don't use their phones. It's the craziest thing. They're there. If they're not working in their art, they're like dancing, or they're having sing-alongs. Or at one point I did something called Girls Praying, and I said, you guys, if you guys want to pray for each other, you can go in the corner. I have girls praying in the corner. They are not on their phones anymore. That's why when Mylan was on her phone, it was such a big deal, because nobody else was on their phone. I was like, what's going on, man? What's the problem? Why are you on your phone? This never happens. And so now we're just doing something called Make It Art, and anything that we want to teach them, we allow them to be active participants in their learning. We give them the concept. We say, this is what it is. Now you tell me what you just learned, and you teach me what that means to you. And it has absolutely changed the entire environment. So I think that a lot of times we are underestimating their natural innate intelligence. We are saying, I know more than you. Let me tell you what this means. Now you tell me what I told you exactly as I told it to you. They hate that. Okay, they're like, do you know who I am? Do you know how intelligent I am? This is boring. Nobody's listening to them. But this is really where we're heading, exactly what you said. So thank you for bringing that up.
So we're at that. What we'll do, I want to go here to Steve. We'll give Elliot the last word, and then Steve, you'll wrap us up. Can I share a quote from you real quick that you don't even know? Yeah. So, no, this is me. So, during the pandemic, we hosted arts leaders in our community like that June. It was like the first time we were kind of getting back to in a space we had masks on. Stephen Riley was leading our Speed Art Museum at the time. He was there. The head of Actors Theater was there. The head of several arts organizations. And he said something, and it's cut out of my magazine, and it's taped to my wall. You don't know this. And he said, so March 13th, 2020, Friday the 13th, that's the day our city shut down. Much of the globe shut down, and that's the same day that Breonna Taylor was killed. And he said it haunted him. And I think a lot of our community is still struggling with that moment. We have tried to mend ourselves in many ways. We're not there. Maybe we never get there. But I think what's so hopeful about this discussion is, despite how confusing my opening questions were, we do crave connection, and we're finding it. And that's so important to me what you said, because I think at the root of it is like that story about Breonna Taylor so easily could have been buried with everything going on in the globe, and it wasn't. And so how do we acknowledge that, acknowledge where we are now, and move forward? So I just want to thank you, because it's something I think about a lot, and that's a person's name who we didn't mention today, but it's something that our city still thinks about all the time. So thank you for that.
Well, I'm going to throw it back because I wasn't going to reference that, but that's been on my mind. And you mentioned March 2020 already. One of the great things that this group has shown us is really that the key way to respond to trauma is love, right? To love your way through it. The other thing we're hearing is that one of the things communities are is a set of stories that people tell themselves about who they are, how they get through their past and lead into the future. And I want to ask the storytellers here, the journalists in particular, having heard some of this, we are really at risk, I think, because we are losing the choice to say that our story is going to be about how we're going to love our way forward through the trauma of 2020, which, of course, for many of us just reflected, well, for many people, represented trauma that was decades long, and some of us became more aware of it through the killing of Breonna Taylor, David McAtee, Travis Nagby. Department of Justice, our federal government has sent our city of Louisville, let's remember it's not our police, it's the city of Louisville through its police force, is violating the Constitution every day in Louisville, Kentucky, and we're being gaslit. So how does we cannot, I don't think, heal if we don't make this part of our story. So for Josh and Stephen and others, how do we, not get gaslit and make this the loving story that is kind of the only way we can heal?
Yeah. I mean, for us, it's trying to include more voices more often. I think one thing we love about this is we don't sit up here as experts with all of the answers, but too often we go to the same people for the same quotes about the same problems. And so our mission at the magazine is to not exclude those voices, but to acknowledge there are other experiences in our community. And really, it's communities plural. It's not some unified Louisville. It's lots of different places. And it goes back to what Christy was saying earlier, too, and what Elliot was talking about. It's how do we form connections where we can. So for us, it's got to be more voices. That's why, we were at an event. Sarah was there, I was there. And at the very end of it, it was okay, here's 5 minutes for the token young person. And it's what? But it's an event about young people, so we're just trying to be more conscious about that. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We're just to sort of point out the obvious. We both run media in this town, but we operate at a very different cadence from each other, and so much of what we do is daily journalism. And there are two things. We are among a sort of long history of newsrooms who talk about accountability in our reporting, right? And I've found myself getting a little, accountability to hold the mayor's office accountable, hold the police department accountable through tough reporting that shows abuse, right? Reveals abuse, talks about people who are trying to fix it. I've found myself becoming a little more alienated from that word lately, and leaning, with the help of a friend who I've talked to about this, toward responsibility instead of accountability, right? And I think that when you just slightly reframe the job of a journalist, whether it is the responsibility of one of our guys who spent the last week and a half covering the Hankison trial, which ended in a mistrial, which is a head scratcher for a lot of people, right? And brings up that trauma that we haven't healed from yet as a community. Whether it's that, whether it is the responsibility of telling the story of how our police department and our city arrived at this place where we're at, whether it's telling the stories of the people who are impacted by it and what they do to heal or to lift up the stories of their communities. I know Josh and them do this too. We track every source that appears in our stories. We want to know where they live, where they come from, what their experiences are, who they are, so that we are getting voices from across our geographical community as well as the other communities we share. So those are some of the ways that we think about it. But I do like sort of moving away from that, really tough kind of grizzled journalist of the past holding everybody accountable and more toward the collective responsibility we all share. And our media outlet is just one expression of that.
And to that point, to circle back to what Josh said in the very beginning, in journalism school, love is not a word that I think ever entered, any sort of training. But I do think in the past 3 years in particular, more journalists are approaching stories with love, even if they don't acknowledge that. I think that that is kind of rooted in where we are right now. And I do think that if that was applied in professions across the board, metro government, police, that if we come from a place of love, that the results, it's going to be different.
It's the sort of artificial distance that gets put between the person who's telling the story and the person who is a part of the story. We used to call it objectivity. You tell a story from nowhere, right? I tend to believe that's nonsense. And I think that part of the change that you're seeing, that Sarah just mentioned, is because we are talking to reporters and editors and other journalists about it's okay to have your own identity and your own experiences and feel a way about this place you love and care about, right? That's okay. You don't have to be the voice from nowhere. You have to be fair, but this notion of objectivity kept black voices out of American media for generations, right? It's been an incredibly damaging part of our collective American story, and so we have to find a new way.
So we're at time. Every time we've done this, there's always more hands. We'll be gathering in the lobby. We'd love to still hear you share. I would also hope that, again, this is just the beginning of a conversation. We did this last year. We did it this year. In between those two events, we did one at LPM. We want to do more of those. So if you're in Louisville, we'd love to reach out to you when we have these events, invite you into the space. Stephen, did you want to do a quick?
I'll try. I just want to thank, in particular, Keyshawn and Elliot and Chastity for what they gave us. Coming on a stage and sharing your story and being vulnerable is itself an act of love and sharing and grace. I like to think of things in three. So I have kind of what we talked about arranged in three sort of themes or sections or paths forward, if you will. One, love is support and grace. It's privilege, as Elliot said, but it's service. It is, I loved what you said, Elliot, at the beginning, it's opportunity. Love is giving someone an opportunity to be themselves. That is really, really important. Love is exposure to something, to a space or a room that you're not normally in, or a stage that you weren't on before, right? And I don't overlook the fact that you are giving this to him today, right? You're the one who brought him into the conversation. So love is mentorship, love is youth development, love is sacrifice. People don't need toughness. People don't need toughness. Somebody over here said, you don't feel, you can't share yourself until you know yourself, right? Something to that effect, which I thought was a really beautiful sort of way of flipping that idea. You don't need, if you're tough on somebody else, you're being exceptionally harsh on yourself. Love people through mistakes. This is a hard one. One of the hardest ones, right? But it comes back to number two, which is love is seeing a whole person. I believe you said love is seeing the trauma and the gift. And I thought that was a really lovely way, beautiful way to think about how to see and how to consider a whole person. What do you do, Elliot said, when love is not the popular choice? Coming back to one of the things Stephen said, that it's not just the police department, it is our city through the police department abusing people and violating their constitutional rights on a daily basis. I wouldn't think maybe love is the popular choice in this city right now. How do we make it so? Love is community and belonging. Communities are different. They are people. They are pets. They're animals. It is nature. Community is geographic. Community is online. You said community is not just where you are, but who you touch and who touches you, right? Who gives you those gifts. There is so much need in this community, and we have to see people. I really loved this. sorry, no pun intended. We have to see people as deserving of community. Think about that. How do you see people as deserving of community? It comes back to, you see the trauma and the gift, right? Probably the thing that will stick with me the most that's been said today. Love is spoken, love is unspoken. Life happens in seasons and relationships do too. But Chastity, what you said, I think of it as a continuum. Anger to anguish, behind the anger. See the pain that is there that led to the anguish. That is your best opportunity to love somebody. So when you can stand there, you're talking about communication. What kind of words do we use? I can think of a bunch of words, but I think of an approach first, which is be open to the difference that someone else is bringing to you when they're sharing with you, when they're talking to you, when they're acting out in pain and anguish. Be unafraid. And recognize that they're probably afraid. Right? Community is a motivator. Elliot said this. He's not under my wing. He's flying next to me. I heard everybody do the same thing when he said it the first time too.
That'll be one of those quotes on my office wall.
Elliot, we're going to build another one of these around what you said today. And then finally, Chrissy asked what to do. We collaborate. We come with an abundance mentality, which allows you to collaborate. Right? You're not in competition with everyone around. This is a hard one for media to understand. Right? Because when I was trained as a journalist, it was, if you didn't get the story first, there was no story. And I think if we center the people who rely on us rather than ourselves, we're called to collaborate, not compete. So that's an abundance mentality. You mentioned intimacy. It's this. It's these conversations where you can be vulnerable in community with each other, where there are no mics, where we're all literally basically in a egg-shaped circle. It's education. It's emotional education. It is social well-being. You have to start with the adults. I love that. We always, what is wrong with these kids? What's wrong with kids? That's right. We have to identify and eliminate structural inequity. We have to recognize that these things aren't accidental, right? Right? The systems and structures that create abuse and inequity in our community were created by someone, and they have to be dismantled by people as well. And then finally, I would like to invite us all to take the things that we remember from this conversation and share them with someone who wasn't here. That's how we expand this community that we've created in this room today. So thank you all very much. Thanks again to the folks up here.